You won't believe the conflagration that just broke out in season 13 of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. It all began when Spice and Scrappy decided they were sick of whispers and positioned Mendeecees squarely in the middle of the crowd. Fans instantly felt that something was going to blow up, and the suspense was so intense that you could feel it through the TV. For weeks, there have been rumors that Yandy and Mendeecees may not be as ideal as they seem. However, nobody anticipated that the moment would become this intense, direct, and raw. Imagine having friends over at a table and the conversation suddenly becomes pointed. Everybody's gaze is fixed on you as the grins fade. That's precisely what took place. Spice asked directly about the status of his marriage as she pushed forward, her voice breaking through the din. Scrappy immediately jumped in, intensifying the problem and preventing Mendeecees from avoiding the obvious. At home, viewers were in disbelief. Some even referred to it as the most stunning confrontation of the season. The events that followed weren't just another casual conversation on reality TV. Everyone was left wondering whether one of the longest-running couples on the program is actually in danger of breaking up after this heartbreaking moment. The room felt heavy with air. The instant Spice gave Mendeecees the piercing gaze that only she could provide. There was only unadulterated music, no jokes, and no distractions. Scrappy leaned back in his chair and waited for the right opportunity to apply his own pressure, feeling the electricity flowing between them. Mendeecees made an effort to maintain his composure by straightening his jacket and displaying his signature calmness. But it was clear that even he was unable to ignore the gravity of the questions that were being directed at him. Spice had waited too long, watching Yandy flaunt her flawless appearance as rumors continued to circulate that cracks were beginning to appear in the cornerstone of her marriage. Thus, she seized the opportunity and asked directly what everyone had been eager to know. "How are things actually going for you and Yandy?" The DCs then sighed softly, as if a storm were about to break out. At first, he spoke softly, as if he hoped no one would actually hear him. He acknowledged that things had been challenging and that he wasn't even sure how to characterize their current situation. The remark was so evasive that it just caused additional eyebrows to be raised and increased the volume of the quiet surrounding him. Slowly shaking his head, Scrappy leaned forward and spoke with more bite. "You've been suppressing it for years, bro. Everyone is aware of that. However, it doesn't appear like you are certain of nothing at the moment. What's the real deal then?" As this was happening, fans were shocked by what they heard. Within minutes, social media was ablaze with people expressing their disbelief and labeling it the most awkward moment of the season thus far. While some defended Mendeecees, claiming he was entitled to privacy, others charged him with concealing anything, claiming that his hesitancy spoke louder than words ever could. The man who had established himself as dependable and devoted appeared to be holding a secret too big to divulge in that instant. Spice wasn't going to accept him, giving him only partial answers. With a stronger tone, she moved closer and reminded him that Yandy had created her own empire, engaged in combat in front of cameras, and carried herself as if she were unshakable. "But why does it seem like you don't even know where you guys are if she's that strong and you're right there with her?" Spice pressed. You could see Mans shift uneasily in his seat as the question went deep, as if he had been torn between exposing a painful reality and defending his pride. Next up was Carly, who never missed an opportunity to stir things up. She smirked and twirled her drink before asking in that cunning tone, "So, are you together or not?" The entire table froze for a beat, the silence resonating like a drum beat, every pair of eyes fixed on Mendeecees, waiting for him to confirm or deny the whispers. She was throwing her words like petrol onto an already sparking flame. His mouth clenched, his face tightening as though he was about to speak, but was unable to force himself to do so. Rather, he whispered that it had been 20 years, that family was family no matter what, and that sometimes the relationship didn't need to be explained. But the absence of a clear response just increased suspicion. Scrappy and Spice looked at each other. They both agreed in silence that something wasn't quite right. Outside of the show, viewers made wild guesses about what might actually be happening. Some said they saw Yandy posting mysterious messages about patience and loyalty on the internet. Others asserted that during recent appearances, Mans had been seen without his wedding band. Whether it was true or not, the commotion merely intensified, adding to the impression that a significant disclosure was imminent. The energy in the gathering continued to change. Friends who used to laugh together with ease now looked at each other with suspicion. I'm not sure if pushing harder would cause everything to fall apart. The edge was still there, but Spick's voice grew softer. She reminded Mendeecees that nobody was ever truly safe by concealing the truth for very long, and that ultimately everything appeared. As if attempting to muster the fortitude to confront the flames, Mendeecees leaned back and rubbed his palms together. He acknowledged that bearing the burden of expectations had worn him out, and his tone cracked with a mixture of irritation and tiredness. Being the family's pillar and the one with all the answers wasn't always easy, and occasionally he simply wasn't aware of how much more than he could manage. The group fell silent in awe at this candor. For a brief period, the typical back and forth and arguing gave way to the unvarnished picture of a man exposing his soul. Scrappy acknowledged the anguish in his friend's voice with a cautious nod. Spice, however, was not yet content. She desired lucidity, assertion, anything that would either demonstrate that the rumors were untrue or indicate that the marriage was in doubt. Naturally, Harley was compelled to exert more effort. With a cunning smirk, she leaned closer and whispered just loudly enough for everyone to hear. I believe Yandy has already made up her mind. She may simply haven't told you yet. Everyone was astonished, their mouths hanging open in shock as the words hit them like a bomb. It was a vicious charge, the kind no one ever thought would be spoken out. Carly, however, delivered it effortlessly. Voices overlapping, the room erupted in commotion as some tried to defend Yandy while others added to the argument that perhaps the power couple wasn't as stable as they wanted the world to think. Mendeecees sat still, his face a mask of mixed feelings, torn between sadness and rage. The air was twisted into something far heavier than anyone had expected by the lingering rumors of treachery. The questions continued to mount as the night wore on. Everyone was irritated and anxious because Mendeecees refused to be honest when his friends asked it. The man at the center of it all appeared more vulnerable than ever as what had begun as a friendly chat had now devolved into a full-fledged interrogation. Everyone in the room was aware that his next words might either patch the flaws or entirely destroy the image. With voices rising and silence falling in lightning-fast waves, the tension in the room was nearly intolerable. Lightning. Mendeecees had never been the type to discuss personal matters with others, a person who allows deeds to speak louder than words. But tonight, with Scrappy leaning in, Spice pressing, and Carly throwing fire wherever she could, there was nowhere safe for him to run to. Every movement, every look, every minute change was captured by the cameras. In his nonverbal cues, and viewers at home were riveted to the television, anticipating a reality that would not come to light. Spice drummed the table with her fingernails. The intentional, crisp rhythm simply serves to increase the pressure. She lowered her voice, but the intensity remained constant, and continued, You know, I'm not trying to put you on blast just to be messy. However, we have witnessed Yandy defend you, support you at difficult times. When she had to bear everything alone, when people questioned her. It doesn't sound like the man she battled so hard for when you admit that you don't know where you to stand. Someone who seems ready to quit up. The words pierced the atmosphere like a blade. With his arms folded and his gaze narrowed, Scrappy leaned back, perhaps gauging every word Mendeecees could venture to utter. Real talk, said Scrappy. Dancing around the question is not an option. Everyone in this room has relationships. We're either in or out, but everyone here understands how difficult it can be. If you say it's love, there is no middle ground. If you call it love, it's the middle ground. Mendy laughed with frustration. He shook his head and said, one without humor. That's the problem, you see. You all only see fragments of what's happening, but everyone believes they understand it. Yandy and I have experienced many things together. Cannot even fathom. All of it cannot be explained in a few words at a table. Carly smirked and sipped her drink slowly, then put it down just in time to strike again. It's complicated, she said. Intricate? In a sarcastic tone, she repeated. That's what males say when they've established themselves. You sit here pretending you don't even know whether you saw it or not, while Yandy appears to be holding it together. Complicated sounds like code for broken. Spice snapped her head in Carly's direction after the remark. You're messy. You are aware of that. Spice retaliated. However, she was secretly relieved that the subject had been posed, as evidenced by the sparkle in her eyes. However, Messy is obviously not providing us with the true answer, so perhaps he is what we need at this moment. This incident gave the online fans a field day. Like wildfire, their responses are flooding in. Some were mocking Carly's audacity and referring to her as the queen of instigations. Others criticized her for her lack of tact. Within minutes, hashtags pertaining to the couple's reported breakup went viral, demonstrating how eager people were to witness rifts in a marriage they had formerly taken for granted. On the other hand, there was no fan laughter inside the chamber. There were layers of mistrust and intrigue in the air. Leaning forward one more, Scrappy's voice now more grave. "You see, I've known you for a while. I haven't witnessed you stumbling like this before, so let's be honest, buddy. Is this a front now? Or are you and Yandy really the partnership we all believed you to be?" Mendeecees' stance finally showed the weight of the inquiry as his shoulders drooped a little. After a lengthy silence, he spoke, his voice now hushed, almost exhausted. "Andy, you are loved. There's no doubting that. However, love does not imply perfection. Love isn't always enough to mend the rifts. We have history. We have children. We acquired recollections. And that adds to the difficulty. However, I am unable to sit here at this moment and tell you where we should be." Once more, the room fell silent. The confession is being processed by all. Spick's face grew softer. The fire in her remarks, however, did not. "Look, that's what individuals afraid to confess. It's possible to love someone and still be enamored with them. The problem is that Yandy has never lost interest in you. Even when everything seemed to go against her, she remained strong. What will it take for you to support her with integrity?" He was shaken by Spick's challenge's directness, but he made an effort to hide it. The remarks hurt, but they also revealed a truth that fans had been whispering about for months. Scrappy nodded in agreement and said, "And that's facts. If she'd been carrying it, why she's still carrying it alone?" Mendy's silence and Yandy's strength were frequently compared on social media, with many claiming that their relationship's imbalance had long been apparent. Others defended him by claiming that everyone had a breaking point and that no one knew the complete story. Carly leaned in with another bomb just when it felt like the moment couldn't get any heavier. "Perhaps it has nothing to do with family, history, or love. Perhaps it has to do with have faith. Perhaps Yandy no longer has the same level of faith in you. Perhaps that's the reason you sound so uncertain." Around the table, there were gasps. Her remarks daring caused heads to shake and mouths to open. Mendeecees' expression stiffened, and he narrowed his eyes at Carly with such intensity that it was obvious she had touched a nerve. He said, "You don't know what you're talking about," with a sharper edge than before. Carly wasn't finished though, saying, "Don't sit here and act like you know my household. I don't have to know your household. I can see it in your eyes," she remarked, raising her eyebrows while seeming to be innocent. The altercation intensified. Overlapping voices as Scrappy sought to calm things down and Spice tried to refocus the conversation. But the harm was already done. Doubt had been sown, and viewers repeatedly relived the scene, analyzing each look, each pause, and each change in tone. Spice slumped back in her chair as the ruckus gradually subsided. Cher shook her head. "Look, this is all I'm saying at the end of the day. Regardless of what people say, the street will tell its own story if you don't address it. And you have no control once the streets begin to speak." Mendeecees, obviously worn out, rubbed his temples. However, he was unable to ignore the veracity of her statement. Once rumors got going, he knew better than anyone. The narrative became almost impossible to control. Still, his silence served as a shield, and the pressure of expectation was beginning to erode that wall. The discussion never came to a complete conclusion as the evening went on. The questions continued to swirl. The strain the cameras focused on Mendy's distressed face, never quite breaking. Unquestionably, there was a sense as the scenario came to a close that something more significant was developing, something that may ultimately push the truth out into the light. The rumors persisted the following day. The group of pals had already heard about the altercation. Additionally, by sunrise, fans on each platform were analyzing every moment of what transpired. While some sped down the video to highlight Mendeecees' twitchy hands beneath the table, others concentrated on Spice's intense gaze, which seemed to cut through all justifications. The line that marked the occasion was, "So, are you together or not?" which went viral online and was repeatedly snipped and played back. Mendeecees. But when they woke up, the storm was still going strong. His phone was constantly buzzing with messages from old acquaintances, family members, and even calls from people he hadn't spoken to in years. It was the same thing that everyone wanted to know. What was actually going on between Yandy and him? He scrolled while sitting calmly in his living room. Through the never-ending stream of posts, his face was gloomy and unreadable. In contrast, Yandy appeared to be communicating silently of her own. Quotes like strength, loyalty, and keeping one's peace abound throughout her social media account. Speculating that these cryptic posts were directed at the scenario, fans quickly made the connection. One line specifically, the statement, "Sometimes silence is the loudest answer," shocked some online. Supporters argued on whether she was teasing Mendeecees or just shielding herself from the mayhem. Still energized by the previous evening, Spice and Scrappy reconnected with the gang. Recalling Mendy's expression, Spice shook her head. She informed Scrappy he wasn't just uncomfortable, her tone was forceful. Scrappy wasn't convinced at first. Perhaps he was simply tired of everyone in his life. I could tell he was hiding something by the way he kept avoiding us and the way he couldn't look us in the eye. Something bigger is going on, and he just doesn't want to say it. You just don't want to say it, he said. It's business. However, even he couldn't dispute the weight of his friend's remarks the previous evening. You're right about one thing, Scrappy said, because he hasn't ever looked that lost before. Normally, he's steady no matter what. He appeared to be unsure of his identity last night. Carly, on the other hand, was enjoying the drama. She called up a few friends, adding her own flavor to the story and filling every detail with relish. He couldn't even say yes or no, girl, as she laughed into the phone. I thought Shilly was going to melt there in the middle of the story. Mendeecees' silence only increased the intrigue. Rather than making a statement or defending himself online, he remained silent, almost daring the rumors to swallow him whole. Her laughter only served to fuel the story further, ensuring that by the afternoon, everyone connected to the cast had heard about the confrontation. The blanks, and soon after, a lot of crazy theories started to circulate. Some said he and Yandy were living apart, while others said he had been seen with another woman. Some even suggested that the couple had already broken up months ago and were just hiding it from the cameras. Yandy sat with her close friends amid this pandemonium, her face composed but her heart obviously heavy. One of her friends asked bluntly, "Are you going to confront what everybody's saying? People are going to talk no matter what, but I can't let their voices dictate my truth," Yandy said, slowly shaking her head. "I'll talk when the time is appropriate. Let them ponder until then." Her words carried strength, but her eyes betrayed the storm brewing beneath the surface. The tension spilled over when Spice decided to confront Yandy directly. Meeting her later that week, Spice didn't waste time. "Sis, you know I love you, but I can't sit back and watch this mess unfold without asking. Where really? Where are you all? Mendeecees is behaving as though we are unaware of it. We've been through more than anyone could fathom," Yi stated cautiously, taking a big breath and folding her hands neatly in her lap. "I don't need to describe every detail